Have you ever looked at someone you care about, maybe a parent, a grandparent, even a lifelong friend, and felt like something was changing, but you couldn't quite explain what it was? Maybe they've grown quieter, a little less interested in the things they used to love, or perhaps their energy has dipped, they're eating less, or sleeping more. And while part of you wants to believe it's just part of getting older, deep down, you wonder if it might be something more. The truth is, most people think that death in old age comes suddenly, like flipping a switch. But in reality, the body often begins its farewell long before that final moment. It whispers first, quiet, almost unnoticeable changes that, if we don't understand, we might overlook. And by the time we realize what was happening, the chance to prepare, to connect deeply, or to make lasting memories can slip away. That's why this conversation is so important. In this video, I want to gently walk with you through 5 signs that someone may be entering their final year of life. These signs don't always mean the end is near, but they are powerful indicators that the body is entering a new chapter, and one we need to approach with compassion, awareness, and love. Let's begin with one of the most common, yet most misunderstood signs: unintentional weight loss. Now, we're not talking about someone who's actively trying to eat healthier or lose a few pounds. We're talking about a kind of fading, pants that hang looser, cheeks that look a little more hollow, arms and legs that feel thinner when you give them a hug. It starts subtly. Maybe they leave more food on their plate. Maybe they start skipping meals, claiming they're just not that hungry. You might even find yourself offering them their favorite dish, only to see them nibble and push it away. Many people chalk this up to just getting older. But here's the thing. The body doesn't naturally shed weight this way without a deeper reason. When someone in their 70s or 80s starts losing weight without trying, it often means that their body isn't absorbing nutrients the way it used to. Muscles begin to break down. Protein isn't processed as efficiently. Even digestion slows, making food feel less satisfying or harder to handle. It's not just about appearance. This kind of weight loss weakens the immune system, increases the risk of infections, makes walking more difficult, and raises the chances of falls or fractures. In many cases, it's one of the earliest signs that the body is preparing for a slower pace, perhaps even its final journey. But what's equally important is how we respond. When families see a loved one losing weight, the instinct is often to try to fix it. Bring over high-calorie snacks, protein shakes, anything to boost the appetite. And while those things can help, it's also important to recognize that sometimes the body is signaling a natural winding down. Forcing food might not help, and in some cases, it may cause more discomfort than comfort. Instead, try focusing on small, easy-to-enjoy meals. Offer their favorites in smaller portions. Sit with them during meals, not to make them eat, but to keep them company. Hydration becomes even more important now. Conversations feel like too much. Phone calls go unanswered. Visits are shorter than before. This kind of fatigue goes beyond normal aging. It's the body beginning to conserve energy, to focus on keeping the heart beating and the lungs breathing, while letting go of non-essential efforts. It's not laziness. It's not depression. It's biology. The body is working harder just to stay stable, and that means there's less left for everything else. One of the most heartbreaking parts of this change is how it can affect someone emotionally. When a person who once took pride in their independence can no longer do the things they used to, they may start to withdraw, not because they don't want to be around others, but because they're too tired to show up the way they used to. This leads to isolation, and that isolation only deepens the sense of decline. So what can we do? The answer isn't to push them to be more active or guilt them into doing more. It's to meet them where they are. Offer rest without shame. Encourage connection without expectation. If they only have energy for one small conversation today, let that be enough. If walking to the porch is all they can manage, Then sit beside them and enjoy the view together. What they need most isn't motivation, it's comfort. And a gentle reminder that their worth isn't measured by how much they can do, but by how deeply they are loved. These signs, weight loss and deep fatigue, can be difficult to witness. They tug at our hearts. They make us want to fix things, to bring back the version of the person we knew just a year ago. But aging and the slowing down that comes with it isn't a failure. It's a transition. A part of life that, while painful, can also be full of tenderness, reflection, and meaning, if we know how to pay attention. And that's what this video is really about. Not fear, not sadness, but awareness. Because the more we understand these quiet shifts, the more present we can be for the people we love. The more we can listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. And the more we can help them move through this chapter not with confusion or fear, but with peace and with dignity. As we continue this conversation, I want to gently bring your attention to something that's harder to see on the outside, but just as powerful. A shift in the mind, in memory, and in connection. I'm talking about the quiet onset of confusion, forgetfulness, and emotional withdrawal. You may notice it when someone who used to be sharp and articulate begins to lose their train of thought mid-sentence. Maybe they ask the same question twice in one conversation. Maybe they forget the day of the week, or don't recognize a familiar neighbor. At first, you might brush it off. We all forget things, right? And yes, a little forgetfulness comes with age. But when it begins happening more often, or when confusion starts to disrupt daily life, that's a signal to pause and take notice. This kind of cognitive change isn't always sudden. In fact, it usually builds slowly, over months. The person may have moments of perfect clarity, where they sound just like themselves, and then suddenly drift into a state of disorientation. They might mix up names, get lost in a familiar room, or struggle to understand what's happening around them. You might see them become anxious in noisy environments or uncomfortable around people, even family members they love. And just like with physical exhaustion, this mental decline can lead to withdrawal. They may stop initiating conversations. They may sit quietly while others speak, no longer joining in like they once did. They might seem uninterested, distracted, or distant. Not because they don't care, but because their brain is simply too tired to engage in the way it used to. There's something incredibly human and heartbreaking about this stage. Watching someone fade not just physically, but emotionally, can feel like you're losing pieces of them bit by bit. It's one of the hardest parts of this journey. But here's what I want you to remember. Even when the words are fewer, even when the recognition falters, love is still there. Their presence still matters. And your presence, your voice, your touch, it still reaches them, even if they can't always show it. So what can you do? Don't try to bring them back to who they used to be. Instead, meet them where they are. Speak gently, even when they don't respond. Keep routines simple and familiar. Use touch, a hand on the shoulder, a warm blanket, a hug. Sometimes what they need isn't stimulation, it's reassurance. A sense that the world is still safe, that someone is still there with them, and that they are still deeply loved. As the mind shifts, the body often continues to follow. And one of the clearest outward signs of this decline is a weakened immune system. You may begin to notice that your loved one is getting sick more often. Colds, infections, even just a lingering cough that doesn't go away. Maybe they get a urinary tract infection that takes longer to treat than usual. Or they bruise more easily and those bruises seem to last forever. A small cut on the arm takes weeks to heal. These aren't isolated incidents. They're signs that the body isn't repairing itself the way it once did. Circulation slows, white blood cells weaken, and the systems that once sprang into action at the first sign of illness now respond more slowly, or not at all. And here's the thing, infections in older adults often don't look like they do in younger people. Instead of a high fever, you might notice confusion. Instead of chest pain, you might just see a drop in energy. That's why it's so important to stay alert to the quiet changes, because they often speak louder than the obvious ones. Now, this can be one of the most frustrating phases for families. You see them struggling to bounce back from a cold. You go to the doctor. You start antibiotics. But recovery is slower than it used to be. And then another infection appears. Then another. It's a cycle that starts to wear everyone down, especially the person going through it. At a certain point, the focus begins to shift. It's no longer about curing every ailment. It's about managing symptoms gently with as little discomfort as possible, making sure they stay hydrated, that their skin is clean, dry, and moisturized, that they feel warm, comforted, and cared for. Sometimes those simple acts of care do more for their peace than any medication ever could. And that brings us to a change that, once it begins, becomes hard to miss. Shifts in breathing and circulation. Maybe you notice them breathing more shallowly than before. Their chest rises and falls more slowly. There might be pauses between breaths, followed by deeper gasps. This kind of irregular rhythm is a sign that the lungs and heart are working harder to maintain function. Sometimes it's a breathing pattern called Cheney-Stokes respiration, where breathing alternates between deep, rapid breaths and longer pauses. It's one of the body's natural responses in the later stages of life. Other signs may include cold hands and feet, pale or bluish skin, especially in the fingers, toes, and around the lips. This isn't just poor circulation from sitting too long. It's the heart conserving energy, directing blood to the vital organs and pulling back from the outer edges. You may also notice that everyday activities, like sitting up, walking a few steps, or even speaking for too long, start to leave them breathless. You offer a pillow. You adjust their seat. They start sleeping more upright, in a recliner, or with multiple pillows to ease that tightness in the chest. At first, it might seem like a respiratory infection or a bit of congestion, but when these changes persist, when breath becomes labor and comfort becomes harder to find, it's a sign that the body is gradually letting go. Now I know, this is not easy to hear. These are hard conversations, but they are necessary, because when we recognize these signs, we can respond with care, not fear. We can bring calm instead of chaos. And most importantly, we can give our loved ones what they need most in this final stretch of life. Not noise or urgency, but peace. If you're seeing any of these signs in someone close to you, confusion, frequent illness, difficulty breathing, it doesn't mean the end is tomorrow. It means their body is transitioning, and your presence in this moment matters more than ever. Hold their hand. Tell them the stories you never told. Sit beside them in silence. Don't rush. Just be there. Because this time, even in its fragility, can be deeply meaningful. It's not about fighting what's coming. It's about honoring the life that was lived and making the most of the moments that remain. Now that we've gently walked through these 5 signs together, I want to pause with you for a moment, not to summarize facts, but to simply reflect on what it all means. Maybe you've recognized some of these signs in someone close to you. Maybe you're in the thick of it now, watching, wondering, aching quietly as you see your loved one change in ways that feel unfamiliar. Maybe you've been feeling overwhelmed, unsure what to do, and wishing you had more time, more answers, more certainty. If that's you, I want you to know something. You're not alone. These changes, as subtle and quiet as they may be at first, often bring a storm of emotions. There's confusion. There's grief, even before loss happens. There's a helplessness that sneaks in because you can't stop what's coming and you want so badly to ease their path. But here's the powerful truth. Recognizing these signs doesn't mean giving up hope. It means shifting your hope. You no longer hope to fix what can't be fixed. You hope for peace. You hope for comfort. You hope for meaningful moments, for presence, for love that doesn't need words to be felt. Because in the final stretch of life, what truly matters isn't medicine or mobility. It's memory. It's connection. It's the look in someone's eyes when you sit beside them and hold their hand. It's the way a familiar song brings a smile. It's the warmth of a blanket, the sound of gentle laughter, the quiet, "I'm here," spoken softly into the room. If you've been wondering whether your loved one is nearing the end of their journey and these signs are showing up in their life, it's okay to grieve that. It's okay to feel afraid. But it's also okay to find beauty in what remains. The final year or months or weeks can be filled with some of the most sacred, intimate moments a family can share. But only if we're present for them. Only if we're not so busy trying to push away the reality or distract ourselves from the discomfort that we miss what's right in front of us. This might be the time to tell that story you've always wanted to tell. To ask the question you've been too shy to ask. To sit in silence and say nothing, but be everything they need in that moment. There's no perfect way to walk this path. You'll get tired. You'll wonder if you're doing enough. You'll wish you had said something sooner or differently. That's part of loving someone deeply. It comes with questions and imperfections. And that's okay. But just by being there, by listening, by noticing, by sitting through the quiet, you are already doing more than you realize. You are giving them what every person deserves at the end of life: dignity, care, and a love that doesn't need fixing, just witnessing. Now, if you're someone going through this journey alone, or you're the primary caregiver, let me say this directly to you. Please don't forget to take care of yourself. The weight you're carrying is real. It's emotional. It's physical. And you deserve compassion too. Find a moment in your day to breathe deeply, to eat a real meal, to let someone else step in, even just for an hour, so you can rest. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's an act of strength. Because when you're nourished, you're better able to offer the love and steadiness your loved one needs. And if you're not in this situation right now, but you're watching this video to learn or prepare for the future, thank you. That kind of care, that kind of willingness to understand, is what makes you someone people can count on when the time comes. As we close, I want to leave you with this. Life doesn't end in a moment. It unfolds like a final chapter in a book, slowly, gently, and with deep meaning if we choose to read it closely. When you start noticing signs like weight loss, deep fatigue, mental withdrawal, infections that don't heal, and changes in breathing and circulation, it's the body saying, "I'm letting go." And that can be hard to hear. But it also gives you time to lean in, to soften, to stop rushing, to make sure no love goes unspoken and no goodbye is left unsaid. The end of life is not just about endings. It's about closure. It's about transition. And it's about love, the kind that stays even when memory fades, even when the body grows still. So, if this video resonated with you in any way, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you've gone through this journey before, or maybe you're walking through it right now. Your story, your courage, could be the encouragement someone else needs today. If you found this video helpful or comforting, please give it a like. It helps us reach more people who might be feeling alone or unsure in this difficult time. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell. We create content that speaks to real moments, real families, and real life, because that's what matters most. Thank you for spending your time with me today. It means a lot. Truly. Here's to being present. Here's to loving fully, even in the quietest moments. And here's to remembering that no matter the season of life, we can always choose grace, tenderness, and peace. Until next time, take care of your heart, and take care of each other.